Real English for your daily life.
Master English together.
Quick question. How many times have you looked at the same page and still felt totally blank later?
If your answer is too many, then yeah, this episode is for you.
You studied hard, highlighted everything, and maybe even whispered it to yourself like a tiny classroom ghost. Then the test starts, and your brain just freezes.
And the frustrating part is, you don't feel lazy. You feel busy. You feel serious, but the result still disappears.
This is a B1 level episode, perfect for intermediate learners. Beginners, you're welcome too.
Today, we're talking about why more review doesn't always help, and why recall might be the real key.
So here's the problem. A lot of us keep reading, rereading, and reviewing, but we almost never ask our brain to do the harder job pulling the information back out.
And that difference matters. When you try to recall something, your brain has to work. That effort helps the memory stay.
It's like keeping a door open all day and calling it exercise. It looks productive, but nothing really changes.
That is painfully accurate. And a little rude, but accurate.
Here's another clue. What you can recall once, you're more likely to retain later.
And what you only review passively can feel familiar for a minute, then vanish as soon as you close the notebook.
Be honest. Have you ever thought, yep, I know this, and then immediately forgotten it?
If you're listening while pretending to study, I see you. And I respect the commitment.
Stay with us, because we're going to show you a simple way to make ideas stick in your mind without cramming your night away.
And later, we'll give you one tiny trick that makes your study sessions feel less like panic and more like progress.
Stay until the end for our word tour 5 expressions that'll help you talk about memory, study habits, and better learning.
And one of them, spaced out, might be the small change your brain has been waiting for.
So, before we dive in, quick choice. Are you more of a reread it again person or a close the book and test yourself person?
No judgment, but your brain probably already knows which one works better.
Let's start with the moment right after you finish studying. You close the book, take a breath, and tell yourself, okay, I know this. Then the real test happens later, and your brain acts like it's never seen the material before.
That gap between "it felt familiar" and "I can use it now" is where so many learners get stuck. They keep doing more review, but they don't change the way they study.
And that's why this feels so personal. You're not just forgetting facts. You're losing confidence. You start thinking, maybe I'm just bad at learning.
But that story isn't usually true. A lot of the time, the problem isn't memory itself. It's that the brain needs a better workout than passive review.
Let me tell you about a student I met in a workshop. She had color-coded notes, 3 notebooks, and a highlighter collection that honestly deserved its own shelf.
That sounds less like studying and more like a stationery museum.
Exactly. She was doing everything that looked serious. She reviewed her notes every night, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times. But when I asked her to explain one idea without looking, she froze.
That freeze is the clue. Her brain had seen the information, but it hadn't practiced getting it back out.
And yes, that can feel embarrassing. You sit there sweating, staring at the page, thinking, wait, I know this. I just had it a second ago.
The problem is, recognition feels easier than recall. When you see the answer, your brain says, oh yes, of course. But when you have to produce it alone, the work is much harder.
That's why simply reading again can trick you. The page feels clear. The sentences feel obvious. You start thinking the knowledge is safe because it looks comfortable.
But comfort isn't proof. Familiarity is not the same as memory.
Here's a simple picture. Imagine you're learning a new route in a city. If you keep staring at the map, it feels easy. But if someone takes the map away and asks you to walk there, suddenly you notice what you actually know.
Right. The challenge shows the gap. The challenge is the test.
And this is where recall comes in. When you try to remember without looking, you give your brain a signal, this matters, keep this.
That's the key. Recall isn't just checking memory. It helps build memory.
Think of it like telling your brain, no, seriously, find it on your own.
Your brain may not love that message at first, but it does respect the pressure.
A lot of learners also think they need to review everything in one huge chunk. They sit there for an hour staring at the same material until their eyes feel tired and their focus gets thin.
Then they call it studying hard, but sometimes it's just long staring with better lighting.
That's brutal but fair. And the scary part is, the session can feel productive even when very little is sticking.
Because review can create an illusion. It makes you feel close to the material without forcing your brain to retrieve it.
Let's make this real. Say you're learning the idea of retrieval practice itself. You read the explanation once and it makes sense. Then you close the page and ask, what was the main point?
Now your brain has to search. It might find one part quickly, lose another part, then come back to it. That effort is the learning.
And yes, it can feel awkward at first. You may only remember half, or one keyword, or just the general feeling of the idea.
But that's not failure. That's the start of retention.
Retain means to keep information in your memory, and the brain tends to retain better when the information is not just seen, but used again from memory.
Exactly. The more your brain has to pull it up, the more pathways get reinforced.
There's also another reason people get stuck. They confuse speed with strength. If they can recognize a no quickly, they think the memory is strong.
But memory strength shows up when the material survives time, silence, and a little pressure.
So basically, if your brain only works when the page is open, that's not mastery. That's page dependence.
I want that on a mug. Maybe a sad mug, but still.
And I know someone listening right now is thinking, okay, but I really did study. Why does it disappear so fast?
Because the brain likes effort in the right place. If you keep pouring time into rereading, you may feel busy, but you're not asking for recall. You're asking for comfort.
And comfort isn't enough when you need the information in class, in a meeting, or in an exam. That's when the empty space shows up.
That empty space is painful, but it also tells you exactly what to train.
There's another word we use a lot in this episode, review. And review isn't bad. It just works better when it follows recall, not when it replaces recall.
Right. Review is useful after you've tried to remember. It helps you correct, organize, and strengthen what you missed.
So the pattern becomes try to recall, then review, then try again. Not review forever, then hope.
That shift is small, but it changes everything.
And once you notice that, you start seeing why some things stick in your mind and some don't. The things that stick are usually the ones you wrestled with a little.
Not the ones you stared at the longest.
That's such a rude truth.
The brain is not impressed by length. It's impressed by effort.
Let's do a tiny practice moment with our listeners in mind. If you're studying right now, pause for a second and ask yourself, what was one idea from this episode so far? Don't look back.
Just try to bring it up from memory, even if it's messy, even if it's incomplete.
Maybe you got recall, Maybe you got review. Maybe you just got the main complaint. Studying can feel good without being effective.
All three are useful. The point is not perfection. The point is practice.
And here's where spaced out begins to matter. If you only test yourself once, you get one useful struggle. If you space that struggle over time, you get multiple chances to strengthen it.
Spaced out means spread over time with breaks in between. So instead of one giant block, you come back later when the brain has had time to cool down and rebuild.
That sounds simple, but it's powerful. A little discomfort today can save a lot of panic tomorrow.
And if you've ever had that terrible "I knew this yesterday" feeling, this is the fix hiding inside the problem.
Stay with us because the next part is where we make this practical. How to turn a study session into memory training without adding stress.
And by the way, there's a phrase for this. We'll break it down later because it shows up again and again in real learning.
So now we've got the big idea on the table. Recall helps memory more than passive review. But I know some people are already thinking, wait, isn't review still the safer choice?
That's a fair challenge. If you've got a big exam tomorrow, reviewing feels efficient. It feels calm. It feels like control.
But control can be an illusion. You can spend an hour rereading and still not know whether you can actually use the material.
I disagree with the idea that review alone is safer. It's comfortable, yes, but comfort can hide weak memory.
Let's push on that. If a student has limited time, they may think, why would I make it harder? I can just read more and cover more ground.
Because covering more ground is not the same as keeping more. You might touch 10 pages, but if none of them stick in your mind, what did you really gain?
That sounds convincing. But what about beginners? If they can't recall much, won't they just get discouraged?
That's the real fear. But discouragement comes from expecting instant success. Recall is supposed to feel a little hard at first. The struggle is the point.
Okay, but here's my pushback. If recall feels hard, some learners may panic and think they're failing. They may feel like every blank moment means they didn't learn anything.
And that's where the framing matters. A blank doesn't mean failure. A blank means review this part now, then try again later. That's how you turn the blank into progress.
So you're saying the mistake isn't the blank itself? It's treating the blank like a verdict.
Exactly. A blank is data, not a disaster.
I can see that, but I still think some people overestimate how much they can remember from one quick self-test. They might think, I got it once, so I've got it forever.
That would be nice. Unfortunately, the brain doesn't work like a trophy shelf.
True, and maybe that's why spaced out practice matters so much.
Yes, spaced out means you don't do one heroic session and call it done. You come back later when the memory has had time to weaken a little. That little weakening is useful.
Wait, useful?
Very useful. When you return after a delay, recall has to work again. That repeated effort helps the information retain better over time.
So the delay is not wasted time. It's part of the training.
Exactly. If you review everything 5 times in one night, you may feel productive. But if you space it out across days, you give your brain repeated chances to rebuild the path.
Let's make this concrete. Say you're learning 5 new expressions in English. You read them tonight. Then you close the book and try to recall them from memory for 30 seconds.
Then tomorrow you check which ones you missed. Review those and try again. 2 days later, you repeat the same challenge. Then a week later, again.
That sounds simple, but some people would still say, why not just review the list every day?
Because daily review can become autopilot. You know the page. You know the order. You don't know whether you can pull the words out when they're hidden.
So the real question is not, did I see it? It's, can I bring it back without help?
That's the heart of recall.
I'm also thinking about learners who say, but I'm busy. I don't have time for fancy methods.
This isn't fancy. It's actually efficient. 30 seconds of recall can save 20 minutes of useless rereading. That's not extra work. That's smarter work.
Ah, the rude truth again.
The brain likes humble routines, not dramatic suffering.
Still, let me argue the other side one more time. What if review helps you notice details you would miss otherwise? What if rereading is useful because it reminds you of connections, examples, and context?
I'm not against review. I'm against review without recall. Review has a role, but it should come after you've tried to remember. Then it becomes correction, not illusion.
So, review is the repair tool, not the starting point.
Exactly. First try to remember. Then use review to fix the gaps.
That actually changes how I think about studying. Instead of asking, how long did I sit here? I should ask, how many times did I make my brain work?
That question changes everything. Time matters less than the quality of the struggle.
Let's do one more quick example. Imagine a meeting. You hear a key point, nod along, and think, easy. But later, someone asks you to explain it, and your mind goes quiet.
That's the difference between recognition and retrieval. You recognized it in the moment, but you didn't practice bringing it back.
And that can feel awkward, like your brain betrayed you in public.
Or maybe it just showed you the next thing to train.
Okay, I'm convinced that passive review alone isn't enough, but I still want a method that feels realistic, not heavy.
Then here's the practical rule. Short recall, quick review, then spaced out return. It's simple enough to use today.
And if you keep doing that, the material starts to stick in your mind for real, not because you stared harder, but because you retrieved it better.
That's the win. Not more pressure. Better practice.
So the debate isn't really recall versus review. It's whether review stands alone or supports recall.
Exactly. And that's the balance most learners need.
So now we've seen the problem. Reading feels safe, but recall does the real work.
And that little shift changes everything. Because your brain keeps what it has to fetch.
In a second, we'll zoom in on the 5 phrases we've been using all along.
One will explain memory, one will explain effort, and one will explain timing, which is exactly where the magic starts.
Okay, now let's go back to that study scene for a second. The one where the notebook looks busy but the brain feels empty.
Right, and that's where our first phrase lives naturally. Recall. It means to remember something you learned before, especially when you don't have the page in front of you.
So if I cover my notes and say, can I recall the main idea? I'm asking my brain to fetch it, not just recognize it.
Exactly, and that little fetch is the heavy lifting. A simple line could be, I can't recall the formula yet. Short, real, and very usable.
And when that formula comes back after a few tries, that's not luck. That's your brain starting to retain it.
Retain means to keep information in your memory. So if you say, I retain more when I test myself, you're talking about memory that stays instead of slipping away.
I like that one because it sounds calm, but the result is serious.
Right. It's the difference between I saw it once and I still know it next week.
Then we get to review. A lot of learners treat review like the whole job, but really it works best after recall.
So you try first, then you review the part that was fuzzy. A natural sentence would be, I'll review the chapter after I try to remember it.
That sounds so much better than endless rereading. It's active, not sleepy.
Sleepy review is dangerous. It feels polite, but it's sneaky.
Now, here's one people always love because it sounds so conversational. Stick in your mind.
Yeah, it means something is easy to remember. If an example, a word, or a story stays with you, it sticks in your mind.
For example, that weird little trick really stuck in my mind. Or her explanation stuck in my mind because it was so clear.
It's a great phrase because it describes the feeling of memory without sounding technical.
And then there's spaced out. This one can confuse people because it has another common meaning in everyday speech, but here we're using it in a learning sense.
In this episode, spaced out means spread over time with breaks in between. So instead of one giant study block, you do a little today, a little tomorrow, and a little later.
Like, I keep my practice spaced out across the week. That sentence tells people you're not cramming.
Exactly. And that timing gives your brain room to forget a little, then work harder to remember again. That's what makes the memory stronger.
Let's make these 5 phrases feel more alive in one tiny scene. Picture a student after class closing the notebook and saying, "I can't recall the key point."
Then a friend says, "Review it now, then try again tomorrow."
A few days later, the student says, "Now I can retain more of it."
And if the idea suddenly feels easy to bring back, you can say, "Oh, that really stuck in my mind."
And if the study plan is smart, it's not all at once. It's spaced out.
That's the whole rhythm. Recall, review, retain, stick in your mind, spaced out.
That sounded almost like a little memory song.
A useful one, too.
Let's do one more quick rephrase so it feels natural in real life. If someone asks how you study, you can say, "I close the book, try to recall the idea, then review what I missed."
Or, I space it out so I can retain it longer.
Or, that example really stuck in my mind.
Those are the kinds of lines that sound simple, but they carry a lot of meaning.
So now you've got the 5 phrases and they're not floating alone anymore. They're tied to the exact problem we talked about, studying hard, then forgetting fast.
And the fix is not more passive reading. It's better retrieval, better timing, and better memory pressure in the right places.
In the next part, we'll wrap everything up and leave you with the easiest way to start today.
Because honestly, once these phrases stick, the whole study habit starts to look different.
So the big idea today is simple. If you want something to stay with you, don't just look at it again. Try to pull it back from memory.
Right. Recall first, then review. That order matters because effort helps the brain build stronger paths.
And if you've been blaming yourself for forgetting fast, please don't. A lot of the time, the method is the problem, not your ability.
Exactly. You're not broken. You just need a better way to train the memory.
Here are 3 easy things you can try today. After a short lesson, close your notes and speak the main point out loud for 30 seconds.
Then make one tiny question from the part you missed. For example, what does recall mean? Or why does spaced out practice work?
And after that, come back tomorrow, then a few days later. So your study is spaced out instead of crammed into one exhausted night.
That pattern helps you retain more, and it also makes ideas stick in your mind longer.
I used to think more hours meant better learning. Honestly, I'd reread the same page until it looked friendly, which is a very strange hobby when you say it out loud.
Very strange, yes, but also very common.
The moment I started testing myself, I noticed something different. I didn't just feel busier, I actually remembered more.
That's the shift we wanted for you today.
So this week, pick one short topic, one question, and one return time. Keep it tiny. Keep it real.
You don't need a perfect system. You need a repeatable one.
And if one idea doesn't stick right away, that's okay. It just needs another round.
Next time, we might talk about how to learn vocabulary faster without feeling overwhelmed.
Thanks for spending this time with us.
We hope this episode helps your study feel lighter and smarter.
Bye for now. And good luck with your next recall check.
See you next time.